Evening and morning were the third day. Then on verse 14, somebody?
And God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark seasons and days and years."
Okay, now before you go on, the King James Version and the New King James Version translate that a little bit differently than what you're reading there. It says, "Let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." Okay? He says that they will be signs before he says it's marking days and seasons. I am not into astrology, okay? And we shouldn't be. The Bible forbids astrology. That means looking at the heavens and trying to predict the future. But that does not mean that there are not portents that are given in the heavens to tell us that divine things have happened or are going to happen. The book of Revelation is full of them. The book of Isaiah is full of them. We see them throughout the Bible, that the sun does a certain thing for a certain person. It moves back a certain way. The day of the Lord will have the moon turn to blood, the sun like sackcloth, all right? And generally it's believed that those are particular eclipses. Now, do you think, this is one thing that just astonishes me. I made a quote, I don't know if you were here for my second sermon, but I made a quote from Isaac Newton about the perfection of the constellations and the stars, and he says it's so absolutely marvelous that it can't be anything other than by a wise and divine creator who I call the Lord God. Anyway, that's misquoted what he said. But here we've got the sun out here, and then we've got the moon out here, and then we've got the earth over here. And as the moon gets in front of the sun, it is exactly, this is what, 122,000 miles away or something? I don't know, whatever it is. You got the distance, and then the sun is 9.3 million miles away. And yet, when this gets in front of this, it makes a perfect, I mean, it just completely, perfectly matches. The spacing is so perfect that we get, anybody ever heard of the diamond, when the sun eclipses, the moon eclipses the sun, it makes this ring around it that you can actually see, and it looks like a diamond ring. It's just beautiful. Anyway, and it fits perfectly. And then when you have a lunar eclipse, same thing. The sun is over here, it blocks the moon this way, and then it makes a shadow. And it comes out absolutely perfectly. We look at these things, and how can somebody say, oh, it was just random chance that this would happen? And has anybody, when do we have a full moon? What happens on the night of a full moon? Moon. Where does it come from? Is it up in the middle of the sky when the moon is full, or where does it come from? It comes at the horizon. You'll know that it's a full moon on the day when it comes up at the horizon. It's not quite full the day before. It'll be up here. You know what I'm saying? But on the day of the full moon, and it's always the same. And then when we have the new moon, it's when the earth is in the opposite position. And it's just fantastic how the earth and the moon and the stars and everything are so perfectly aligned. Now, are constellations something that are real, or are they man-made? They are. Is that right?
Well, the description of them.
Is it?
Yeah.
Have you ever read the book of Job, what it says? Where he talks about the bear, and he talks about Orion, the Pleiades, right? Okay, I'm not using the Hebrew term Arcturus and a couple of these other things that he says in Job. But anyway, yeah, the constellations really belong out there. And God really set them in the stars to tell us things about himself. We're not to try to predict the future with these things. Divination is against the Bible. But these things are in there, and they are understood for what they are in the Bible. And people, I tend especially to get real reticent even talking about these things because you can get so easily sidetracked. And what does Job even does too? He says, lest I look at the moon and my heart be taken away by it. Or in other words, I get enticed by the moon itself. And so why, we're going to go into Leviticus, I think it is, for a minute. Why did they have a new moon celebration in Israel? What would be the point? What? A new moon celebration. Every month they had the new moon celebration. Why would they do that? To keep from idolatry. New moon is when there's no moon in the sky. And the Lord mandated that they have a new moon celebration every single month, right? It's to keep them from moon worship. So we need to be very careful about how we treat the stars and the constellations and the signs. But God put them in there for a reason. And so if you want to kind of get over any timidity you have about these things, is I recommend, and I've mentioned this book before, is E.W. Bullinger, The Witness of the Stars. He wrote it in the 1860s, and in fact, he determined certain things in there that actually are very, very interesting. You can read it right online, philologos.com, and it's not a long book. And it's a little bit hard to read because he's kind of a thinker. But anyway, The Witness of the Stars is an excellent book to read to understand what God has put in the heavens and why, and how it has been misused by zodiac, you know, the Chaldeans in Babylon and all the people that do horoscopes and stuff like that. They really are in the sky for a reason, but we misuse them. And it's the same thing with anything. I mean, we have a million things in the Bible that God has ordained. He made trees, right? Well, people in Israel were doing what? They were going out and they were sacrificing under every spreading tree, it says, or burning incense under the trees. The tree is not to be worshipped. The Creator that created the tree is to be worshipped. But, so we need to be careful. Here's just a funny thing. I was lived in Malaysia for 3 years, and the Indians are real superstitious people. And they're about 6% of the population in Malaysia. And they were building a highway down to Klang from where I live, from Petaling Jaya to Klang. They're building a new highway. And there was they had one of those big excavators, and it was out trying to pull up things. And it got to this one big banyan tree, and it fell over. And so all the Indians went and started worshiping the banyan tree. It was crazy. You know, the tree's stronger than the excavator or whatever. So we've got to be careful that we don't do those things. But God built that tree for us. We can use the wood, we can use the leaves, we can use all the, you know, whatever for healing, and we come up with medicines. Same thing with the stars, same thing with the sun and the moon. We can determine things about what God is doing by those, but we don't want to predict what's going to happen, and we don't want to misuse them. And I'm real careful, I won't say any more than that, but understand that yes, those are in there for a reason. So for signs, what's that?
Tree hugging is out.
Well, I don't know. I kind of like trees, and you know, but yeah, I know. As long as we don't worship it, and as long as we don't put a tree above mankind, which is what the ecological movement does. It takes whales, and you know, you get these professors that say if man didn't live on Earth, how much better it would be. Yeah, it'd be a much better place, and you know, we ought to stop having children. And my thing is, and I didn't bring my gun today. Usually I have a gun on me if you see me, but I don't have it in my pocket today. Anyway, my thing would be if I was in that class, I'd just walk up and say, here, why don't you start with yourself? And see how quickly he doesn't do it, right? I mean, absolutely. It's just insane. Anyway, so they are for signs and for seasons, and then it says, and days and years. So we have the signs. They are there to tell us that God is doing something in a certain way. And as I said, the book of Revelation is full of that. And Matthew 24 is the book of Isaiah. God says, ask for a sign, anything in the heavens or on the earth. And he says, I won't test the Lord my God. And he says, then he himself will give you a sign. The virgin shall be. Well, later, the same king, King Ahaz, said, do you want the sun to go forward 10 steps on the, I'm sorry, what was it, Hezekiah, but it was on the stairs of Ahaz. Anyway, do you want it to go forward or do you want it to go backward? And he says, well, it's easy for the sun to go forward, have it go back 10 steps. And so the Lord moved it back 10 steps. He was giving him a heavenly sign. Anyway, that's in Isaiah 28, I believe, and we can read it someday when we get there. What is it? Where was I? For signs and for seasons and for days and for years. And what can we do with absolute regularity in daily life? And I'm trying not to be too specific, but with the sun and the moon. What are some things we could do with absolute regularity? Plant. Then that's what he's saying right here. For days, for signs and for seasons, for days and for years. We can plant. And what does every ancient culture on earth do? Or what did they do? They built what? Stonehenge, and they built the temples, and the summer solstice and the winter solstice. Now, of course, they're worshiping the creation rather than the creator, but they knew the exact day. They found this thing in Arizona. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It looks like a little child's drawing inside of a cave. It's just like, it's kind of like this, like a little circle, and it's got a little thing over here and a little thing over here, and it just looks like a little child was in there doing this. And the sun shines through this hole that's in this cave, a natural hole, and it actually points down into this little thing that looks like a child's drawing perfectly the summer solstice. It's the most incredible thing that some guy sitting in a cave can predict thousands of years in advance by this crude-looking little thing, exactly when the sun and the moon are going to be in a certain place. Now, once again, God has made everything in a certain way so that we can tell, have a great day, sorry you have to go. But anyway, he's put these things in here so that we can tell when to plant seeds and when it's going to be hot and when it's going to be cold and all the time of the day. We can, we have nuclear clocks nowadays, but we can set our clock by going over to a sundial and we'll be within a few minutes. We have a sundial, the Roman sundials. And so it is with regularity that and it goes right back to the beginning. Now, here's something that we can think about now for future studies. Does anybody know how long a biblical year is? How many days are in a biblical year? 360. And that's important to understand now. It'll be more important when we get up to the book of Numbers. But if you try to use a Gregorian calendar or a Julian calendar or a Mayan calendar or any of the other calendars in the world, it will not work. A biblical year is 360 days, and that's from the book of Revelation all the way back to the beginning, Genesis, and we can find that out from the Noah account, okay? They are 30-day months in a 360-day year. Now, the modern Hebrew calendar has, every 19 years, they have 7 times in 19 years, they have what's called an intercalary month. I mispronounced that, but it's a big word. Anyway, that means they have 12 months in their year, and the last month of the year is the month of Elul, E-L-U-L, and then the first month of the year is Tishri. Well, what do? 7 times every 19 years is they have to add in a second month of Elul. So they have Elul twice, because it doesn't fit what it used to fit, the 360-day year that God originally made the creation on. And so you have these 5 extra days, and so 7 times every 19 years they add in another month of Elul, which has got to be really crazy living in Israel. I've never seen them do this, but this is what they do. Anyway, and then...
Doesn't it screw up the seasons for planting?
No, because that is like our leap year day. We do it every 4th year. We add in 1 day, right, which is, that's tomorrow. But it's not leap year tomorrow, but it's tomorrow, which means that my wife's birthday is at 12 o'clock tonight, and her birthday is over at 12:01 because she's born on leap year. Anyway, so it saves, it saves me all kinds of money because I only have to buy her a present once every 4 years. It's great. Anyway, the what? She only ages every 4 years. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, people sometimes will say to my daughter, "Is this your sister?" So it's kind of fortunate with that one. Anyway, I mean, I am. Anyway, on a multitude of levels. Anyway, so it's a 360-day year. If you are in the Bible, and this is just so you know this for the future when you're reading the Bible, if you see it say, in the 4th month, and it goes on and explains what's happening, that means that it is speaking of the first day of the 4th month. Sometimes it will say on the first day of the 4th month, but normally it'll say on the 3rd day of the 4th month or the 15th day of the 4th month, whatever. But if it says in the 4th month, you always date it from the 1st of the month. That's an important thing to remember as far as, have a wonderful day now.
We're also talking about the Jewish month, because at the Exodus they started it over.
That's right. We'll do that right now because, it'll help you when you're doing your Bible studies, and it's a good thing. Let me erase all of this because I'm getting all over the place. But just so you know, you have a 360-day year, and this gets confusing, and people have, over the years, there's all kinds of interesting dating in the book of Kings. Very interesting dating. And people have found all kinds of discrepancies and errors in the book of Kings, and so they dismiss the Bible. And yet a guy named Edwin Thiele wrote his doctoral dissertation on the book of Numbers in the Bible, and they are perfect. There are no errors in them. I'm telling you, if you saw the work that this man did, it is incredible. Anyway, here's what we have. We have the beginning of the year is what we're talking about right here in Genesis. It is actually the month of Tishri is the first month of the year. And then from there, it goes around 12 months back to Tishri, okay? And each one of these months has a Hebrew name. And it gets confusing. The first month of the year now, or I won't say the first month, but anyway, Abib is one of the months. You've got Abib, you've got Tishri, you've got all these different Hebrew names that are in the Bible up to a certain point. And then all of a sudden, Abib becomes Nisan. Okay? Nisan is the same month, but it's based on the Aramaic when they went to Babylon. Okay? So this is now the name of the month. So when you're reading the Bible, it gets a little confusing. This is the first month, and it's a 12-month year, okay?